We're going to take a break for a word from our sponsors, and we'll come right back. Stick around. Stick around.
Dominica revolves at AC Shillingford and Company. For timeless, trusted, dependable, comprehensive insurance coverage, it has to be New India Insurance. Need anything overseas? Shopbox Dominica and Isle of Freight is your advance on-time delivery right to your doorstep. For super savings on all your groceries, come to ACS Super Shopping Center for laundry, groceries, cooking, beverages, and event supplies on King Jonathan Street. ACS 7-Eleven on High Street, supplying your everyday essentials. Fill up your vehicle gas tanks, get your cooking gas, and top-ups of all kinds. Or go to 7-Eleven Portersville, where the best-kept secret is conveniently located upstairs in the confidential escape or staycation self-contained accommodations at the Porter's Place. AC Shillingford, where you spend less and get more.
Supplies. So I ask you, what are you doing inside Bloombox? Do you have a farm? You tell me, that's how tell sort. I've been married 37 years. Look at my money farm. They say, no, not woman, like land for farming crops. And then you understand, Bloombox is the most affordable on island. Knapsacks starting at only $57.71. Elsewhere, it's $300 plus. Cutlass seeds, seeding trays, nursery pots, sales of potting mix, all at way better prices than anywhere else. Fertilizers, 3-in-1 multi-tool, and so much more. Located on Federation Drive, Goodwill. Second property on the right after the Valley Link Road and on the corner of Drury Lane and Hanover Street in Rosal. Bloombox. Let's bloom together. When you go in shopping for farming supplies, so I ask you, what are you doing inside Bloombox? Do you have a farm? You tell me, that's how tell sort. I've been married 37 years. Look at my money farm. They say, no, not woman, like land for farming crops. And then you understand, Bloombox is the most affordable on island. Knapsacks starting at only $57.71. Elsewhere, it's $300 plus. Cutlass seeds, seeding trays, nursery pots, sales of potting mix, all at way better prices than anywhere else. Fertilizers, 3-in-1 multi-tool, and so much more. Located on Federation Drive, Goodwill. Second property on the right after the Valley Link Road and on the corner of Drury Lane and Hanover Street in Rosal. Bloombox. Let's bloom together.
When you want the best, what you do? Shop at SCS. Better than the rest. Go shop at SCS. And they all compare. Shop at SCS. You get more for what is there? Shop at SCS. Shop at SCS. Yeah, shop at SCS. Shop at SCS. What is there? Shop at SCS. Yes, family, customer friendly, with free locations, it's so convenient, and our price is Madam, that's where you belong. Oh, tell your mama, tell your papa, shop at SCS. Tell your son and your daughter, shop at SCS. Auntie, nene, and cousin, friend, open power, all of them. My grandpa, open neighbor, girlfriend, boyfriend, side, shop at SCS. Shop at SCS. Shop at SCS. Shop at SCS. Check us out at Portersville, High Street, and downtown Roseville.
All right, Dominica. Yes, a different guest. We're going to be talking about some local events, but for sure, some international events, huh? What the world is witnessing taking place in Iran, Israel, and of course, the US. He's a Muslim brother. Not from the Middle East for sure. His name is Jacques Claude. That's how I knew him in school. We went to school around the same time. That was many years ago. If I declare, you might want to tell his age or my age, right? But that's okay. His name is Jean-Claude Nassif, a teacher in the Middle East as well, an artist. I'm sure he'll tell you more when he introduces himself. Jean-Claude Nassif. Good afternoon to you, sir. How you doing? Long time. You've been here before.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago. How many years ago that was?
I think the last time I was here was in 2020, 23.
Did you speak then?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I was willing to be a guest and, of course, share his views. Jean-Claude, tell us who you are.
Okay, so my name is Jean-Claude Elias Nassif. Most of my Muslim colleagues and brothers know me as Ilyas.
Ilyas.
Yeah, Ilyas is my middle name.
Okay.
Ilyas was my grandfather.
Okay.
So my mom called me Ilyas after my grandfather. It's his second name. So I like to be called by that. I think it's a little easier. And it's the name of a prophet. So it has meaning for me.
Okay.
So I was born in Dominica in 1968. I've studied abroad at schools in the US, and then in 2000, after becoming Muslim in 1994, I traveled to Saudi Arabia in 2000 to study Arabic and Islam.
Mm-hmm.
And I've pretty much lived in Saudi Arabia from 2000 to 2025, so 25 years. And now I'm back in Dominica.
So can you say all of this in Arabic so people listening there can, of course,
نعم
dissect?
طيب اوكي، انا ولدت في دومينيكا ثم سافرت الى المملكه العربيه السعوديه في عام 2000 ودرست في كليه الشريعه في جامعه ام القرى ثم رجعت الى بلدي هذا بعد 25 عام.
So simple, huh? I wish I could talk like that. So you live your life, most of your years in the Middle East.
I live
in Saudi Arabia.
You can say almost half my life was over there, but I'm back here now. I'm pretty much back permanently. My mother is here, and I came to really help her out and stay with her. So it's part of
you decided to come back home.
Yeah, for a number of reasons. One of them is mainly for my mother, and
a big fan.
Yeah, she is. Plus, I have some projects I'm trying to work on, including some art projects. We'll talk about that maybe
later. So. Are you taught?
You taught? Yeah, I teach. I have taught, and I continue to teach. I teach the Muslim community here.
Mm-hmm.
We have some outreach programs that we're working on as well, and I also teach online.
Okay.
I teach English and British history.
Okay.
I do little things here and there in
O-
between.
online.
Yeah,
So
online,
you've been
yeah.
teaching for
Well, I've been teaching since about 2010 after I graduated, because I studied from 2000 to 2010. So I studied for 10 years.
10 years to
Yeah.
speak this language fluently?
Yeah.
But you
Because
said you spent some time in the States doing what?
that was before that. I studied in the late 90s. I finished my last 2 years of high school in Miami.
All right.
And then I did 3 years of college in art first in Miami and then in Baltimore. I did my final studies in Baltimore, Maryland.
So you decided to become a Muslim. What year you said?
That was 1994. Yeah,
1994.
yeah.
Why?
Why did I choose? That's a good question, actually. I became a Muslim I was convinced that Islam was the truth after having studied and looked at many other so-called religions. So I didn't just become a Muslim just like that. Just one day I woke up and said, I want to be a Muslim. I mean, I was raised a Catholic, like many people here. And I actually I think it was a period of about, when I became like 18, I was around the age of 18. I started really thinking about our life and the purpose of life. Are we just here to mark time, just have a good time, and then start, 9 to 5 weekend? Is that our purpose in life, or is there something greater? So I started asking myself these questions, and I did a lot of research. I used to go to the public library. Some people may have recalled me from being a constant visitor to the library. I used to go there and read, and I didn't.
Our public library.
Public library, and
Yeah.
I see it now in this state. It's very sad. I wish they could do something about that. That's another story, right? Anyway, at that time, I used to go there to research and read books. That was before the internet, right? So the only access we had to information I got was through reading books and stuff. So I did a lot of research, but I did not read books about religion in my search for the purpose of life. I started off by reading books that I thought famous stories, like the famous playwrights and people who wrote stories, from that people accepted all over the world, famous literature. I thought maybe these writers, because they were talking about certain things that people could relate to, perhaps I could find the answer to my question in those books. But after about 2 years of reading many, many books, famous books, story books, and all these kinds of things, I basically realized that these people were just talking about their personal experience, and there was no answer to my question in those books. So then I turned to reading books about philosophy, and I read all kinds of philosophies, Kierkegaard and Nietzsche and Sartre and all these French, existentialists and all that kind of stuff. And I found again that all of them were people that were also searching, but they, through their own methodologies, through philosophy, trying to arrive at a conclusion by using their intellect as to what our purpose was in life. Then after I realized that they were all just basically talking subjectively and not objectively, I then decided to read about world religions. No, I did not just read, go straight to Islam. I looked at Buddhism. I looked at, by the way, there are 2 religions I just didn't even bother to research from the beginning.
What it is?
That was Judaism and Hinduism.
Okay.
You know why?
I don't tell me.
Because both of those religions are not based on a divine revelation for all of mankind. They're based on, it's a religion that was formulated for a specific group of people. So if you're a Hindu, you have to be Indian.
Oh, okay.
And if you're a Jew, you have to be Jewish. It's not something that they invite people to accept. It's a religion based
It's
on
almost selective.
Yeah, it's what we call irq in Arabic. It's based on your lineage and your. So I said to myself, that can never be the truth, because what's my blame if I happen to come from China or I come from Africa? What blame is it on me that I cannot find the truth and be allowed to go into paradise or have some reward for doing good deeds in this life? It doesn't make sense. You're born into something and you have no choice in it, right? No one chooses how they're born, where they're born. No one chooses that. So it didn't make sense to me. So I just didn't bother research that. And I looked at other world religions. And then eventually I found a book about Islam. And when I looked at that and I really read about it, that made the most sense to me. It was practical. It was based on things that you could accept from your natural, your natural disposition, as well as many similarities between Islam and Christianity, which I was, kind of transitioning from. So after some time, after around 2 years of research, I basically considered myself to be a Muslim, but I was not practicing Islam per se. I just internally considered myself a Muslim until one day when I came down here for vacation in the summertime. There was a student, you remember Ross University, right, in Portsmouth?
Yeah.
There was a student from Iraq, and he was based in America, and he was a student at Ross University. And he saw me standing on the street, and he approached me, and he just asked me if I was a Muslim. And I said, no. He said, what are you waiting for? And I said, maybe I just, I didn't have any reason. He said, come with me. And I accepted Islam on the spot that day.
Right there.
And it's been, a change for me since that time, a great change and a great motivation for my life from that time till now.
And it has made a difference significantly.
Well, I was never, you know me, right? I don't know how you remember me at school, but I wasn't really exactly a wild person. I mean,
very quiet.
I never,
to yourself.
Yeah, pretty much. And I never did crazy things, so it wasn't such a big transition for me. I mean, many of the way I kind of lived before, of course, there's some adjustments, but I'm still kind of the same character within, same personality, but I just do things a little bit differently. And speaking about that, travel, I was telling somebody yesterday how important it is to travel. Here in Dominica, we have a lot of potential to do things. But the thing is that people, because they're stuck in a very isolated environment, they're not able to envision
anything else,
things that may be different or different way of doing things. And I think it's very important to be innovative, and you can learn that just traveling. You don't even have to go to a university. Traveling is an education. I've benefited so much from my travels, and I just wanted to share that and just mention that. Yeah.
Well, I'm very happy you could tell us your story. But again, just to fast forward a bit, because I know everybody's waiting, but Muslims do experience a lot of quote unquote terrible things out there because of just who they are. Why?
Well, you know why that is, right? That all started in 2001. Okay. Now 2001 is what happened in 2001?
911.
That was 911, right? So basically, and again, I just want to say here that I'm expressing my personal views, not necessarily views of the Muslim community of Dominica, because we do have a community. For me, if you research and really look at it, what happened in 2001 was basically a setup operation to declare war on a group of people, that is the Muslims, because after the fall of the Soviet Union, America didn't have any big enemies. So Nixon actually predicted and said that our next big enemies are going to be the Muslims. Nixon, right? Way back in the 60s or something. And so they basically set up an event to happen so that when they attacked Iraq and Afghanistan and the places that they attacked after that, the world would agree that they had the right to do that because of how their territory was violated. So the World Trade Center bombing basically was, to me, I believe without a doubt, a setup. And there are people who say this explicitly. I'm not the only one. That it was a setup, an inside job, basically, so that the world would say, whoa, what a bunch of barbarians. Look at what they did. These are terrorists. And therefore, they can now legitimize their hostility towards Muslims globally after that.
And that's what you think?
Yeah, that's what I feel. I have no doubt about that. And so the Islamophobia we see today going on around the world is basically, it starts with that. Because before that, when terrorism was used, I mean, we had the IRA fighting against the British, right? And they bombed places, but no, they used the term once in a while, terrorist, but it was never used the way we know it today. I mean, that word really became a part of the lexicon and the dictionary in the English language after 9/11, 2001.
So are you saying Osama bin Laden did not exist?
He did exist, but he was
not a Muslim?
He was a Muslim.
Right.
But he didn't orchestrate that. That orchestration, you see the technicality of that whole thing, that operation? A person living in a cave that doesn't even have access to internet and phones, setting up something like that, it's not reasonable.
You don't think so?
I'm sure about that.
There are many schools of thought that said he was a big terrorist.
Well, with the word, that's a relative term, right? Some people call people that others consider to be terrorists to be freedom fighters, right? What was his terror basically? He was basically fighting against the Soviets that had invaded Afghanistan. Osama bin Laden went from Saudi Arabia into Afghanistan to help the Muslims there fight against the Russians who had invaded their lands. Is that right? So that was his mission in Afghanistan to begin with. I'm not, necessarily defending everything that he said or believed. I do disagree with him on many things, but that was the origin of his moving to Afghanistan. Then after the Americans declare war on Islam, he gets caught up in it because he's already in Afghanistan and they're attacking Afghanistan. So it took on another dimension now. Yeah, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand.
And then they blame, because America, if you think about it, right? America, they're the ones that invented things like Batman, Robin Hood, and all these kind of. They always have to have a boogeyman, right? They have a thing called the boogeyman in America, where they always have to have a bad, an evil personality that they can identify and put the blame on. So he became the face of that boogeyman, right? And that's how that whole thing started. Anytime people saw a person looking like him, they say, "Oh," and
they run scared.
But here's what's strange, right, Matt? Think about it, right? Today, if you listen to any kind of music, whether it's rap or dancehall or whatever, people are glorifying what? Violence, right? Talking about shooting out a man's head, and nobody says, "Oh wow, look at these Jamaican terrorists." Why is that not considered to be hate and terrorism and all of that? Why is it just when the Muslim says he's defending his land, now he suddenly becomes a terrorist? So there's a double standard when it comes to that whole issue of violence and terrorism.
Fast forward to 2005, 2006, the war that we're having. Can you basically explain who are the Israelites in terms of, are they Christians? Are they Muslims?
Oh, great question.
Who are these people?
Okay, great question. So I don't know why you said 2006, because
2026.
2000, yeah, 2000. Well, it goes back to with the war that we know now that's happening in Gaza, right? In Gaza, in Palestine. That newly, it's not a new war. It's just regurgitated. It's just basically renewed in 2023, on the 7th of October. The Palestinians who had been having over 70 years of terror, basically, people coming in and stealing their lands, they decided to launch an operation to just hurt the Zionists as badly as they could. That was that 2023, 7th of October. And they retaliated, as they often do, with brute force, clearly disproportional in terms of the amount of weapons that they have against the people that all they have is stones, right? And you saw what happened from that time till now. I mean, anybody who's been following news, it's amazing that actually people who are pro-Zionist, and I don't say Jewish because we have to differentiate between Jews and Zionists, and we'll come to that maybe later. But the Zionists, the people that occupy Israel today, what they call the state of Israel, are basically Ashkenazi Jews. They're Jews that they're not really Semitic people. The original Jews that come from Yaqub, that is Jacob or Israel. They are people who were basically mixed with Europeans who lived in Europe. And then when the founder of the state of Israel decided to set up, to come there to live after World War II, because remember, Hitler was persecuting them. So they were looking around the world for a place to go to. In fact, they were looking at Uganda. Their first choice was not to go to Palestine. Although they do have a history in Palestine, those European Jews chose eventually to go to what we call today Palestine. And they made the excuse that land was promised to them. I'm going to give you the historical
I'm following
sequence going way back.
Okay.
If we go back to the time of Jacob, right? You all know the prophet Jacob. He had 12 sons. Among them was Joseph, right? So we see, for example, that the father of the Jews, the original Jews, was Jacob, Yaqub. We say in Arabic, Yaqub. And they had moved to Egypt, the Jews who were in Palestine. And by the way, they were not the first people in Palestine. The Canaanites, Canaan, was an Arab tribe that came from the Arabian Peninsula. They had arrived in Palestine 4,000. They lived there 4,500 years before the coming of the Jews, the original Jews I'm talking about. So Jacob goes to Egypt, okay, and he stayed there for 40 years. And at that time, Solomon, the prophet Solomon, Suleiman, he ruled over them. And they had a glorious history in what is today Palestine. That's why they keep talking about the Temple Mount that they believe is buried under Masjid al-Aqsa and all that stuff. In Genesis chapter 31, verse 1, it says that Jacob dwelt in the land of his fathers and he journeyed to in the land of Canaan. So the Bible actually mentioned that it was the land of Canaan. That's Genesis chapter 31, verse 1. Later, after that, a Pharaoh, which basically in Arabic means a king. So Pharaoh is not a person's name. Pharaoh is a description. We call him Pharaoh. So Pharaoh at that time started persecuting the children of Jacob, the Jews. And he persecuted them. There's no doubt about it. The Quran talks about that in many verses. Allah said in one verse, for example, in Surah Al-A'raf, chapter 7, verse 141, he said that, and remember when we rescued you from the people of Pharaoh, who afflicted you with a dreadful torment, killing your sons and sparing your women. That was a severe test from your Lord. After that, God sent Moses and Aaron, that is Musa and Harun, Moses and Aaron. They were two brothers and they were prophets. God then sent them to the children of Israel, to the children of Jacob. And he basically called them to leave off their pagan ways because they had reverted to start worshiping idols. They had a cow that they used to worship. So Moses and Aaron, they were sent to call the Israelites, the Israeliyin, to stop worshiping these things and to come and believe. And then Allah sent a miracle. God sent a miracle to Moses and his people, and he delivered them. That's the famous, the parting of the sea that is mentioned biblically, and every Christian knows about that. Then after that, the people returned to being corrupt. After they were spared and they saw the miracle of the sea being parted for them and Moses delivering them from Egypt back into Palestine, they again returned to their ways. They started complaining about what they don't have food, and how can they eat just one kind of food and all kinds of stuff. And they were also mocking Moses and asking Moses to show them God. That's the Jews. And that was a prophet that was sent to them, Moses.
How about the Israelites who say they are God-chosen people?
We'll come to that. Then after that, they worshipped the cow. They worshipped a cow. After Moses had delayed in bringing back the commandments, the 10 commandments from Sinai, they were impatient in waiting for that. So they decided to go back and worship their cow, believing that the cow could bring them more benefits than Moses and his God, that is God Almighty. Later, they returned to Palestine. But when they returned to Palestine, the Palestinians were there, the people of Canaan. And they were afraid of them. They said that these people are not easy. So we have to fight them. But they didn't want to get involved in fighting. So Moses was encouraging them, let's go, let's fight against them. And they said no. And then he prayed, that is Moses prayed to God, and he said, oh my Lord, and this is in the Quran, I have power only over myself and my brother. So separate us from the rebellious people. Separate us from these people because they don't want to do what I'm commanding them to do. And then Allah made the land forbidden for them for 40 years. They wandered in the wilderness of Sinai. After that generation died, Allah mentions this in the Quran as well. After Aaron and Moses died, Aaron died first and then Moses. They were followed by Joshua, another prophet that was sent to Bani Israel, to the children of Israel. And Joshua had a son who was the son of Nun, a prophet called Nun. And then the Jews, they conquered Jerusalem. And then Islam came after that. Islam comes after that. The final prophet Muhammad comes, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then the Jews, Jacob was mentioned, and so after that, they're now going back into Palestine, but they're afraid to do that because of the presence of the people of Canaan. And basically today, their claim to that land, which is your question about promised land, yes. The promised land that they use, this is something that they use simply, they don't even believe. Most of the Jews, all those Jews that basically set up the state of Israel are secular Jews. They have no belief in religion.
No Christians.
It was just convenient to them to use the Bible and what is the Old Testament for their convenience to say that the land belongs to them. But as I established before, the people of Canaan, it's not about who was there first. The issue of the covenant as to who deserves to live on that land is based on who are the people that obey God. It's not based on a clan of people or race of people.
Okay. No special people.
There's no special people. It's based on those who obeyed God. So when they did all of those things, and they even tried to kill Jesus, right? When they did all of these things, God Almighty sent a final messenger to the Arabs, but for all of mankind. His name was Muhammad alayhi wasalam. And so the land that we call today, what we call Jerusalem, and the land that they're claiming is theirs, Basically, the reason why they have no claim to that, and it's not legitimately theirs, is two reasons. One of them is because they disobeyed God. So the fact that they disobeyed God, they have no claim to that, because that land and the masjid and the sacred sites are for those who obey and believe in God Almighty. And the Jews today clearly have disbelieved in God and gone against His commandments. The second reason why the land does not belong to them is that those who, it's not about who was there first. It is about who establishes God's laws. And it's mentioned in the Quran that Allah said, verily, Allah said, Inna al-arda lillahi yurithuha man yasha min ibadihi wal aqibatu lil muttaqin. Allah said what? That He gives, verily the earth, all of it belongs to God. The earth belongs to God. And He gives it as a heritage to whoever He wills of His servants. And the blessed end is for the people of piety, the people of righteousness. So that's nothing to do with race. So they just use that as an excuse to claim that the land is theirs. As I said, if it was based on who was there first, the Canaanites would have more right to it because they were there before them.
So why do you think that America is America's biggest friend in that region?
Well, just imagine, for example, let's just say, okay, let's use our scenario here. Let us imagine that a bunch of people start to come in as, whether they're political refugees or whatever, coming from another land and decide to settle in Dominica. And then somehow they make their way up into the House of Parliament and they start putting themselves in all kinds of places. They own all the businesses, they're making all the money, and they're in high places of government. What is going to happen now? Those people, whoever they are, I'm not naming any nation, but just imagine a people from another place were to do that. They would then control the narrative of politics and everything and the economy in that country, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, this is what has happened in America. Those people, the same Ashkenazi and European Jews, they control all of those things in America. The wealth belongs to them, and they also have high positions in every place where there is money. The diamond industry is owned by them. So they have a lot of clout and power. They have political power, not only because of their businesses and their money making, but they also have political power because they are in places, high seats of government. So they dictate the policy. In fact, Trump he's basically being used by them. He's basically being used by the Zionists to get the goals that they want.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's a spider web, actually.
It is a spider web. But let's go to your situation there. I mean, you're Muslim and you travel around the world. I'm sure you've been to the Middle East, you've been to UK and every other country. But because of who you are, you experience some challenges out there.
Well, to be really frank, to be really fair, I haven't faced that many challenges. I think in all of those years of traveling back and forth, because even though I've been gone like 25 years, I come every year. That's why you see me from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
I still come every year, sometimes twice a year, before my settling down now. And to be frank, I've only really experienced problems in all of these maybe 25 years of traveling. I would say there were 3 incidents.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was just this last trip coming down. As I passed through Holland, I got stopped because it seems that they were trying to clarify whether I was involved in human trafficking. That's what they told me.
You've been an economic citizen.
Yeah, they thought maybe I bought a passport and I was somehow doing something illegal. But even the guy who stopped me afterwards came and apologized, and he acknowledged that his colleagues,
supervisor, instructor,
yeah, they were a lower rank than him. The guys working at the customs, they did not bother to look carefully and see that it says clearly on a passport where the person is born. So even if you have a passport, like for example, I know people who have Canadian passports, they were not born in Canada. The passport clearly, it shows their mother, the country of their birth. Even though they have citizenship in that country, it shows the country of their birth. Mm-hmm. My passport clearly shows where I was born, Princess Margaret Hospital. It doesn't say Princess Margaret, it says Dominica. Right? Dominica. So the point is that they did not bother to even look at that detail. They were so excited about, wow, we got some big fish, And the 2 other times, once was not even after 9/11. The first time was about maybe 4 years after 9/11 in London. They stopped me because I had gone to Yemen. I had gone to Yemen because my wife is from Yemen. and they saw this stamp, Yemeni stamp in my passport, so they figured, what is he doing in Yemen? And I had gone to Yemen for a wedding. My brother-in-law was getting married, and we went to his wedding. And so when they clarified that there was nothing, no kind of record of doing anything illegal, they let me off. But I missed my flight, and they had to rebook me on another flight. That was the first time, and the second time was a similar incident as well for that.
It's very, very interesting. Very interesting. Let's again fast forward and let's talk about the war now going on there between Israel and America and Iran. Is that justified?
Well, first of all, let me just say I'm not a political expert. I'm just an ordinary, Muslim, but I do look at current events, and I have my opinion about what is going on. Basically, it all comes down to basically one thing. It's all about money. It's all about controlling money and controlling wealth and power. It's about two things: money and power, right? And the reason why Iran is seen as a threat, although I will say here that I am not a fan. I don't support I don't even want to use the word regime, because they use this word regime to make it look like they have an illegitimate government. I can't go into whether they're legitimate or illegitimate. They are the dominant people in their country right now. It's a long story. It's how the Shia Muslims became the leaders of Iran today is a long story going way back before 1979. But anyway, to shorten the story, today they are seen as being a troublemaker in the region because
Iran?
Yeah, Iran. Why Iran? Because Iran is the only country that has built up its military in the region. The other Gulf nations just depend on America for protection. Do you get it? So they are seen as a threat because they are a threat to Israel. America planted Israel in that region to sow discord and division. Planted, yeah. Because remember, there was no state before 1948, right? They didn't have a state before 1948. Where were they before that? They were scattered all over Europe, some in Germany, some in all over the place. And then they decided to come there and make a state for themselves with the help of the British. It was the British who gave them that permission to come there and have a state. And they took advantage of that, and then they started butchering people. Right? And so the thing is that they control the narrative. So they make it look as if the Canaanites, the original inhabitants of Palestine, are barbaric people, and they're civilized because they look like Europeans, they talk like them, and they're educated, and etc. And this is really sad, because this is something that's repeated in history over and over again. All indigenous people have been controlled and have been pushed off their land with the claim that they're uncivilized. We see this even with the African story, right? The Europeans went into Africa. We had a place called Rhodesia, right? Which is what now Zimbabwe, right? So Rhodesia was called after a man. His last name was Rhodes. Look at the South African experience, where they went there and they just barbarized the indigenous people, claiming that they're the civilized one. These people are backwards.
But you're saying the U.S. and America had no rights or reasons to be in there.
Yeah. So going back to why Iran? Because, as I said, they are the ones that have been building up their military, and they are seen as a threat to that state. They know that they're not a threat to America. They are a threat to Israel, which is America's puppet in the region, or vice versa. So the point is that they start this off because they want to get rid of the Iranians and weaken them, so that they cannot put up any resistance towards their occupation of the land. You get it? That's what it's
But
about.
is there a winner as we speak? And because it seems that Iran is holding them back a bit.
I think prophetically, from the signs that we see from the text indicates that these are events leading up to the end of time, and that both of these nations are going to be weakened by this experience. The Iranians are going to become severely weakened, as well as the Israelis. So it's not a win for anybody, but there's a good outcome of that, because this paves the way now for the return of Jesus, who is not, by the way, going to come and talk about Christianity. He's going to come and establish that what the Christians followed was false. That's our belief. But he will come again, and that is paving the way for that event to happen, as well as the coming of the Antichrist.
So you're looking at what timelines you're looking at?
We can't say that. And I know a lot of people like Jehovah's Witnesses and their founders made predictions in the 1940s, saying that it was going to be 1942 and all of that. We don't make predictions, because Allah said they ask you about the hour. يسألونك عن الساعة قل إنما علمها عند الله. That say that the knowledge of the hour is only with your Lord. We don't make predictions about the hour, but we can observe signs and say that, this is paving the way for this event.
This is a sign.
I think this is one of the signs coming up to the end of time. Yeah.
But do you blame Iran for blocking up the Hormuz and this?
To be frank, my personal feeling about that is that, in wars are not pretty, right? Wars are an ugly business, and sometimes innocent people get caught up in wars. But the reality is that region, that passage, is in their backyard. So if you ask me, if you're looking at proximity, I mean, who has more rights to, for example, the Caribbean Sea off the shore of Dominica? Is it the Dominican people and the Caribbean nations, or is it, for example, Japan? You would say it's us because we're closer to it, right? So I would use the same analogy in that.
All right, let's just go to a quick break. We'll come back, of course, to talk more about what's happening in the Middle East. Stick around, Dominica. We're here with Dominican brother, Muslim.
For timeless, trusted, dependable, comprehensive insurance coverage, it has to be New India Insurance. Need anything overseas? Shopbox Dominican Isle of Freight is your advance on-time delivery right to your doorstep. For super savings on all your groceries, come to ACS Super Shopping Center for laundry, groceries, cooking, beverages, and event supplies on King Jonathan Street. ACS 7-Eleven on High Street, supplying your everyday essentials. Fill up your vehicle gas tanks, get your cooking gas, and top-ups of all kinds. Or go to 7-Eleven Portersville, where the best-kept secret is conveniently located upstairs in the confidential escape or staycation self-contained accommodations at the Porter's Place. Ace Shillingford, where you spend less and get more. Dominica revolves at AC Shillingford and Company. For timeless, trusted, dependable, comprehensive insurance coverage, it has to be New India Insurance. Need anything overseas? Shopbox Dominican Isle of Freight is your advance on-time delivery right to your doorstep. For super savings on all your groceries, come to ACS Super Shopping Center for laundry, groceries, cooking, beverages, and event supplies on King Jonathan Street. ACS 7-Eleven on High Street, supplying your everyday essentials. Fill up your vehicle gas tanks, get your cooking gas, and top-ups of all kinds. Or go to 7-Eleven Portersville, where the best-kept secret is conveniently located upstairs in the confidential escape or staycation self-contained accommodations at the Porter's Place. Ace Shillingford, where you spend less and get more.
Listening. Advertise on Q95 today. Get more bang for your buck. Talk shows, news, sports, music shows, entertainment events, weekend shows, Newsweek reviews, early morning shows, evening and daytime shows, hot tips on health, nutrition, security, traffic, weather, environment, and more. Place your display banners on the Q95 website, www.q95da.com, with live links to your own website. Advertise on Q95, your one-stop shop for audio and video streaming, breaking news, sports, and entertainment. Advertise on Q95. Get value for your money. Call 767-448-5822 today. The Big Station.
I see Golo in shopping for farming supplies, so I ask him, what are you doing inside Bloombox? You have a farm? He tell me, that's how the hell sort. I've been married 37 years, look at my money farm. He say, no, not woman, like land for farming crops. And then you understand, Bloombox is the most affordable on island. Knapsacks starting at only $57.71. Elsewhere, it's $300 plus. Cutlass seeds, seeding trays, nursery pots, sales of potting mix, all at way better prices than anywhere else. Fertilizers, 3-in-1 multi-tool, and so much more. Located on Federation Drive, Goodwill. Second property on the right after Valley Link Road and on the corner of Drury Lane and Hanover Street in Rosal. Bloombox. Let's bloom together.
Best things happen when we crunch together. So crunch and share the love with KFC's bucket together. $45 gets you 6 pieces of chicken, 2 fries, 1 corn, 1 biscuit. With KFC, there's always chances to win big. 3 winners, 3 destinations for an all-expense-paid trip with Sunrise Airways, St. Martin Carnival, St. Kitts Music Festival, and Lucian Carnival. $1,500 spending cash, hotel accommodation, event tickets, and ground transportation. All you have to do is purchase a bucket together. Write your name and phone number at the back of your receipt and drop it in the Dropbox. KFC's finger licking good.
At the different phases in life, we move at a different pace. All we need is to be supported. Cause when the baby's coming, business needs revamping, the new job started, and you need an outfit. Let momentum hook you up. Momentum will hook you up. The wedding's planning, red through days coming on. support financing. Let momentum hook you up. Momentum will hook you up.
Take advantage of NCCU's Momentum Loan and get the support you need for whatever stage you are in life with a tiered interest rate and exclusive emergency fund component. Let NCCU's Momentum hook you up. Call 255-2126. Email membercare@nccudominica.com or visit any NCCU location for more details. Your pace, our support.
Just me Goldwyn in Roseau again. Same place outside Flossie's. I tried to dock in, but you had time see me. Where? Story start again. Million, lot of my power with us, huh? Saga fella, I said the same thing you doing, shopping at Flossie's, and you don't have to tell me the same thing you tell me last time because I busy. It's to hear him way. You reckon? About my pocket, boy. I won't tell you that I save money in food and drinks when I buy quantity. I save more. Oh, shucks, man. Well, when you're still telling me, I know already. Tu paga respect him, why? But it can even pepper palais. I will tell all my friends from London, US and Dominica to come to Flossie's, right next to the Rosa Market. Open Sunday to Saturday. Flossie's can't do it to you.
We're here with our Muslim brother. So if at any time you feel like you need to ask him a question, he's here. Somebody's asking, what's the guy's name? His name is Elias. I think Jerry went to school around that time too. You remember his brother Emil Nassif? I think you remember that, huh? We have a few more minutes. Talk a little about, before you wrap it up there, about the Shia Muslims. It's a significant difference here.
Okay, so in Islam, there are two main, very large groups of Muslims. There's a schism between a group which is known as...
Hold that thought. Let me take a phone call before you go. Are you there, Carla? Yes?
Yes, but I hadn't said the Nassif.
Yes, the son of Imens.
So is he the grandson of Sisi Kodera?
No, Imens Nassif.
Yeah, actually, Sisi Kodera was my grandmother on my mother's side.
Daniel Kodera to be your uncle?
Yes.
Okay, my dear. I just wanted to find out.
Okay.
Okay, you're the right person. My mind just came on. All right, then.
Okay.
All right, let's take another phone call. Are you there? Yes?
Yes, hello.
Yes,
I heard my brother spoke about Jesus Christ coming back again. But the Jesus Christ that is in the Muslim Bible, Quran, is different from the Jesus Christ in the Bible, you know, because they believe that Christ is not God. Christ didn't die, but he didn't resurrect. He didn't die, he didn't resurrect. The only thing that he ascended into heaven, God didn't kill him, and he be coming back again. So the Jesus Christ they have is not what the Bible spoke about. You know, so it's completely two different people. You know, and I believe that the Muslim religion is like a religious dictatorship. You have to submit to them. We are not freedom. You know, there's a secular dictatorship and there's a religious dictatorship. So, like in China, you have a secular dictatorship. So the Muslim, let's say in Iran right now, is a setup like until the dictatorship, a setup like bandits, seize power and control the masses. That's the dictatorship. Or whether by arm or through the ballot, rigging the ballot. That's the dictatorship. And when they take control, they rule by force, tyranny. You know, so they are not ready. What they're going to do in the Middle East is a religious war already. You know, so there are two different spectrums when come for the Jesus in the Quran and Jesus in the Bible. Jesus is God and he don't believe he's God. So there are two different Jesus they're talking about there. Thank you.
Okay, your thoughts
if
on
I
that?
can just answer that question.
Yes.
All right. So the Jesus that is in the Bible, first of all, you have to understand the history of your Bible. Okay, the Bible is a book that was compiled over 1,300 years. The Bible that we have today is not an authentic book. The Bible that you have today, which was translated from Greek, okay, which is not even the language of Jesus. So Jesus spoke Aramaic, and there is no existing original copy of the Bible, whether it is the Old Testament or New Testament, that exists in that language. So what you have is a translation of things that were put into Greek. That's the first thing you need to understand. You need to understand your history and know what you're talking about, because your book is not an authentic book. That is clear historically, and even biblical scholars attest to that. They acknowledge that. You have how many different versions of a book? Not even like mixed differences in translation. You have whole differences. The Catholic Bible has what, 66 book, and the Protestant Bible has 56 or 57 books. Okay, whole things thrown out. Okay, expunged and removed from the book that you say and claim is the word of God. Did God speak English to Jesus? He didn't speak English to Jesus. That's a language you inherited from your British colonizers. First thing. Secondly, the character of Jesus, we believe in Isa. We call him Isa ibn Maryam, Jesus, the son of Mary. The difference is not in a difference in who is man, we believe in. The difference is how we see him. We are talking about the same Jesus, but you and your belief that you got from the British is a belief that he was son of God, which came from Paul. And Paul, you need to know the history of Paul. Paul was an imposter who was a Jewish person that was persecuting the followers of Jesus. Then he claims one day that he had a vision, and suddenly he starts he's a Christian now, and he starts inventing and innovating in the religion of Jesus and putting things that Jesus never said into Christianity. And then they added his books. They added his books later on. The Romans added the books of Paul into the Bible and saying it's word of God. So the character that he describes, and that no one can go to the Father except through Jesus, that was never taught by Jesus. Jesus prayed as a Muslim. He prayed to his God. It even says, when you talk about him being crucified, which we don't believe that he was crucified, but it says supposedly in the Bible that he said, Ila lima sabachthani. He said, my God and my Lord, my God, why have you forsaken me? So you're saying that you killed a man for the sins of the world. And this is, I have to say this here. This is a wicked belief. Why is it a wicked belief? Because it allows people to disobey God and claim that because Jesus died for the sins of the world, now we can do whatever they want. Okay, so unlimited freedom is not something praiseworthy as you claim, okay? It is something dispraised.
I'll tell you what, we'll have to have a conversation about that. We can see a lot of callers disputing just what you said there, Elias, but we can talk. We can have an interesting debate on that one. Somebody said, I totally agree. Religion brings war. Hello, talk to me. Are you there? I'll call us. Sorry about that. Let's take a phone call. We have to wrap it up in a little while. It's about, we have 7 minutes. I think we
I
have
can just address that issue of religions make war, right?
Uh-huh.
Can I answer that?
Sure.
This is a common, it's become what they call a cliche, that religions bring war. People don't even think about saying that statement, okay? Because in reality, the biggest wars in history, which was World War I and World War II, had nothing to do with religion. The biggest wars in history.
Somebody's on the telephone.
Had nothing to do with religion.
Hold on. Are you there, caller? Sorry. Yes.
Yes, I am there. Matt, good afternoon, and good afternoon to your guests. Hello, Mr. Nazi.
Hello, how are you? Good afternoon.
Yeah. Okay, I got Blue call to find out who is that person. I was so shocked. I don't know if he can remember me. My name is Marlin Detush. I used to work at the post office. Your father, it was Raviol, your sister, your brother, and you. I don't know if you can remember me. Immense by immense. Your father and your mother were very nice to me, and you were very nice children.
Thank
How
you.
long you left and you went to overseas?
It's been 25 years. 25 years.
Oh, well, it is that you can't remember me.
No, I
You're
remember
very-
you. I remember you.
You're tall and handsome, and I wish you all the best. Keep on preaching, keep on talking, and I wish you all the best. Good luck, my brother.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks.
Last year I met Mom, and I was talking about you
Okay.
and your your brother and your sister.
Okay.
And you know, we worked together and we spoke. So I wish you all the best, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Let's take our final call. We have just about 6 more minutes. Let me leave me. Hello, are you there, caller? Yes.
Yes. Good afternoon, man.
Good afternoon.
Great program, and the young man is very knowledgeable. I appreciate this kind information. But a question to him: what's the difference between the Shia Muslim and the Sunni Muslim?
Shia and Sunni, yes.
Yeah,
Not
thanks
so
for the
much time.
question. Actually, I was just beginning to talk about that and we got interrupted. So I was saying that there's a big schism happened in the Muslim nation, which was basically a schism that came about because of political leadership. After the death of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Muslims were divided as to who should be the leader of the nation. Okay, and some people said that it should be one of the companions of the Prophet, who was his cousin. His name was Ali ibn Abi Talib. Others said it should have been Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, who was another famous companion and the best friend of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. So from that time, there was this political difference as to the leadership of the Muslims after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. Is that clear? Later on, it developed. The schism developed, as schisms usually do. The origin of this is a political difference. It's not a religious difference. It began as a political difference, and then afterwards, like many things, they transmutate, right? Things develop and change. So it became later on a theological difference as well. We come to in the 16th century in Persia. There was a king who came around. His name was Ismail. He was the leader of a dynasty which was known as the Safavid, or in Arabic, Safawi dynasty. And he basically wanted to restore the Persian Empire. Although they believed Islam was the truth, but they wanted to distinguish themselves from the Turks to the west and the east, the Asian Muslims, Sunni Muslims to the east. And so he basically, just like what happened with Christianity in 325 in the Council of Nicaea, when Constantine formalized and said, okay, we're going to believe in Trinity now. Basically, he formulated the concept that Shia Islam was going to be the dominant kind of Islam that would rule Persia. And he forced the people who were Sunnis, because Iran was a Sunni state, he forced them to become Shia. What does Shia mean? Shia comes from the word Shaya, which means to divide, or a group of partisans and friends. Okay, so this was a group. So they call themselves a group, meaning the group who is loyal to the cousin of the Prophet Ali ibn Abi Talib. The Sunni Muslims we are referred to as Sunni Muslims because we follow something called the Sunnah, which is the path and the methodology taught to us by our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So as I said, the difference is there are many differences. They differ with us in their belief about who should be the leader of the Muslims after the death of the Prophet, and they have other beliefs in things like intercession with people that were dead and all these kinds of things. So that's
But I can tell you, because given the phone calls, a lot of people have a lot of questions. I suspect we'll have to invite you back soon. But I know there's a big exhibition taking place very soon, so let's wrap up with that. By you.
Yeah, one of the things that I do is I do art. I paint. I paint and I do something you can call it abstract art. Basically, I paint, and I don't normally paint things that you would see. I paint based on ideas. So I would have an idea about something. For example, let's say we're talking about the immigration of people. What they call refugees, refugee migration. I did a series of paintings based on the idea, not directly connected to that, but I got an idea of like boats, right? So I would make a shape that looks like a boat, and I would represent that repetitively in a painting. The idea initially is based on the idea of refugees on boats, but then I make designs out of it, so it has a reference to that, but it's not exactly linked to that.
More abstract.
Yeah, it's like
so
abstract.
When is that exhibition then?
That exhibit is going to be at the Old Mill Cultural House on the 15th of May. It opens on the 15th of May at 7 p.m. Anyone can come. Feel free to pass by. And it's open for 2 weeks as part of Dumfesta celebrations. Yeah.
That's good. Open, they can pass by. And let me take one final phone call when I introduce our next guest here. Hello, talk to me. Our final call.
Yes, I just want to welcome Jean-Claude back to Dominica and to thank him for being so concerned to ensure his mom is supported. He has not changed. He has always been a focused, intelligent, and individual full of potential. So he will be a great asset to our community. Thank you.
And he's not a refugee. Let's take a final call. Let's, the people are waiting for me on the outside. We'll invite him back. We have a lot more things to talk about. Are you there, caller?
Yeah, Matt, good afternoon. How are you doing, my
Good
brother?
afternoon, my brother. How you doing?
Fine, thank you. And good afternoon to your guest. Matt, I heard your guest mention that Jesus was a Muslim.
Yeah.
Yes, he said that. Yes.
Okay, well, because I want to find out from your guest, when was the Muslim religion established? Because my understanding is that the Muslim religion came on the scene somewhere in 610 A.D. Yeah, that's not?
AD, yes.
610 A.D. As far as we know, Christianity was about before the Muslim religion. The Muslim religion was formed somewhere in 610 AD after the people moved from worshipping multiple gods in that area they call the Kaaba, where they had over 300 gods worshipping. They moved from, then in that year they formed the Muslim religion.
All right, I'll tell you what, because of time, Brian, let's answer that quickly and you'll come back.
How much time I have?
You have 2 minutes.
Okay, so to answer that question,
yes,
we say that Jesus was a Muslim.
Mm.
What does it mean? What does being a Muslim mean? A Muslim means one who submits to God Almighty. The reason why we consider not only Jesus but all of the prophets to be Muslims is because this is what they did. They submitted to God Almighty. Now, with the coming of the final messenger Muhammad alayhi we see the fulfillment and culmination and perfection of the religion of the prophets in Islam. But Islam existed because all of the prophets and messengers called to the same message. They all called their nations to worship God Almighty and not to make partners with Him in worship, and that is the fundamental message of Islam. So Islam, with the final dispensation of the Prophet Muhammad, is a continuation of the prophethood that started from Adam and Noah and all of the prophets that came.
it was a pleasure. Good food for thought. You'll be back sometime. Thank you. Mr. Elias Nassif, Dominican Muslim, was in the Middle East for 25 years. You see, he's fluent in Arabic there. Huh? All right, next up coming up, my brother, thank you for coming. Thank you. I know your mom is smiling now. All right, Dominica, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back to share more on this, the talk on the block. If it's on the block, we'll talk about it. Stick around.
The different phases in life, we move at a different pace. All we need is to be supported. When the baby's coming, business needs revamping, the new job started, and you need an outfit. Let momentum hook you up. Momentum will hook you up. The wedding's planning, rent due dates coming. Momentum is your support financing. Let momentum hook you up. Momentum will hook you up.
Take advantage of NCCU's Momentum Loan and get the support you need for whatever stage you are in life with a tiered interest rate and exclusive emergency fund component. Let NCCU's Momentum hook you up. Call 255-2126. Email membercare@nccudominica.com or visit any NCCU location for more details. Your phase, your pace, our support.
Just me Goldwyn in Roseau again. Same place outside Flossie's. I tried to dock in, but you had time see me. Well, story start again. Million, lot of my power with us, huh? Saga fella, I said the same thing you doing, shopping at Flossie's, and you don't have to tell me the same thing you tell me last time because I'm busy. It's to hear him way. You reckon? About my pocket anymore, yeah. I won't tell you that I save money in food and drinks when I buy quantity. I save more. Oh, shucks, man. Well, when you're still telling me, I know already. To pack a spetting way. But I can my pepper palais. I will tell all my friends from London, US and Dominica to come to Flossie's. Right next to the Rosa Market. Open Sunday to Saturday. Flossie's can't do it to you.
Hardware and home improvement, building supply for you, kitchen appliances, even home decor too. Lumber, lawn, all your garden supplies, plumbing, welding, electrical supplies.
Visit Do It Center at the former Jane Asset Hardware location on Goodwill Road. Call us at 255-6890.
Welcome back. In studios, of course, we'll be talking telecoms with telecoms consultant Bennett Thomas and a few special guests he'll introduce. Mr. Thomas, good afternoon to you, sir. Yes.
Afternoon, Matt, and thanks once again. It has been a long time since we...
A long time. You seem to have gotten a little rosy. No?
Yeah. It's relative, though.
Yeah, I know.
But once again, thanks. And our two guests here are from... We have Federica. She's from the Dominican Republic.
Okay.
She'll tell you more about herself soon.
Mm-hmm.
And we have Mr. Iago. He's actually Brazilian, but he's based in the UK.
Her name again?
Federica.
Federica, like the French. Federica. Okay.
Right. And he's Iago.
Iago.
I-A-G-O.
Yes, Iago. Mm-hmm.
And he'll tell you, I think he's a PhD student at Berkeley.
I just finished. Yes.
Berkeley in California. Okay. So what are we exploring this afternoon?
Okay, I'm going to allow Federica to start the process. Okay. She has all the information on that.
All right, Federica.
Thank you very much, Ben. And thank you very much for having us today. My name is Federica. I'm the program manager for the Certificate in Global Digital Infrastructure, which is a program launched in 2025 by UC Berkeley with other industry partners like Seboptic Foundation and iMasons.
Mm-hmm.
And today, with my colleague Iago, we are here, and the whole week we will be in Dominica because we are presenting about the GDI Fellowship.
Okay. Oh, there's a fellowship up for grabs there. Okay. So tell us, Doc.
Yeah, sure. Thank you again for having us. My name is Iago Wojciuk. I'm a research associate with the University of California, Berkeley Center for New Media. And as Federica mentioned, we are in the island to spread awareness about a fellowship that we recently launched. That is a continuation of a project that is funded by the Internet Society Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And this project focuses on enhancing the human capacity for building, designing, and maintaining digital networks. So going all the way from the subsea cable to the terrestrial infrastructure and everything that goes in between in terms of policy, regulation, and so on. This project is currently in its second phase. The first phase, we came to the island and we conducted interviews and technical visits with different stakeholders that culminated in a report that was recently launched. So the idea is to continue that sort of what we discovered in the first phase to train the next generation of builders from the Caribbean region who will be deploying those infrastructures.
All right. Tell us a little about
Okay.
that.
So as Iago said, alluded to by Federica, sometime last year, the same group from the Suboptic Foundation is a foundation that deals with digital infrastructure, subsea cable.
Digital infrastructure.
You'll be surprised to know that over 99% of all internet, it goes through a subsea cable and not through the airwaves.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it can be damaged and so forth, but there is necessary technology. So they came in last year. Iago was there. Dr. Nicole, who is not here today, Eric Contag from the Suboptic Foundation, and they are funded by the Internet Society called ISOC.
Mm-hmm.
We came here and we met with Cable and Wireless. Actually, the program started with, interestingly, Dominica, Turks and Caicos, and Puerto Rico were chosen in the region to do the study on digital infrastructure, cable, subsea cable. So I was contacted and we met here with Flow, members of Flow staff like Ramsey and the general manager. We met with Digicel and their staff, technical staff. We met with, what's his name? Yeah, the company, the small one. Epic.
Epic, yeah.
Right, we met with Epic. We met with some government officials also. And we met with the NTRC, the regulator.
Mm-hmm.
They then compiled a nice research document, which they have a copy of.
Mm-hmm.
And the phase 2 of that project is where that we are now looking at education. So Federica will give you more on the education part. So what we're looking at is how we go about digital infrastructure. How you look at
I was about to, of course, ask a question. What involves digital infrastructure?
Well, as Iago said, okay, so you have the subsea cable, you have internet. Anything that comes from the cable coming in from the sea, on land, to you having the client being able to do it. All the intricacies involved, the cabling, the networking, the equipment that flows off it at the digital office, until it comes to your home right now. All of that structure, it's called digital infrastructure. And that is what the whole project is all about. So maybe Iago can explain even further for you.
Sure, absolutely. So digital infrastructure comprises all the infrastructure that sustain the digital world. So going all the way from the backbone to the terrestrial, to the satellite, to all the infrastructures and assemblage that enable data flows and processing of that data on a global scale. It also entails the organizations, the standards, the laws, the people, and all the fabric that bind all of those elements together. So those infrastructures are often large scale in nature. They depend on multiple organizations. They are transnational, so they rely on international cooperation to deploy and to maintain them. And they're oftentimes invisible. So there's very little public awareness about how they function in society. So part of what we're doing with the project and embedding the Global Digital Infrastructure Certificate at UC Berkeley is to bring awareness and research that element of the digital world that is often invisible and often overshadowed now in the context of AI and all of those different.
So why has it been so invisible?
Well, I think it goes back to the very history of telecommunication systems and the very internet. I mean, emerging out of military projects and not being accessible to the general public because of its black box nature, and also competition. Oftentimes, one or two companies or three companies sort of retain the technology, and so it's very difficult to bring awareness around those infrastructures.
So, again, an interesting question. You sit right here at the thing, and you go on your phone and you hit Wi-Fi and you get service. Right. You know nothing that happens after that.
Mm-hmm.
So you have, for you to get Wi-Fi, there is technology involved, there is all kind of data transmission, there is the cable, and the signal coming in, it comes out from, let's say, Miami under the sea cable. So there's what is called an app, and then you have all of this infrastructure from, let's say, the States, all through the cable. They actually have undersea cable running from the States. In fact, there is maybe more undersea cable now than anything else. If you were to take, for example, a survey, and if I show you a map of the undersea cable in the world,
I'd be amazed.
You'll be amazed. I mean, you literally see lines all over the place. And for example, some time ago, you may have heard that, let's say, the internet went down. Well, so it's a major node is, let's say, in Pampano Beach in Florida. If somebody, by the cybersecurity, intend to attack it and hit it, then it causes massive traffic congestion, network goes down, and it affects nearly the entire Caribbean and the Western Hemisphere. But people don't see those things. They don't know their Wi-Fi not working. But when it's out back up, that signal comes all the way down through the cable to the landing point in Capefield to digital or cable and wireless network, all their equipment back up. So that is the invisible part. All you know, you have internet. And if internet is not there, you call cable and it's something to say and say, hey, my internet is not there. But it could sometimes not even there. It could be a cable got struck underwater in Miami, or somebody sabotaged it in somewhere. And then the effects bring down the entire network. But people are not aware.
So do you know automatically where this cable is affected?
Yes, they have equipment that can easily track it down. But they keep maintaining it, so they know, okay, where the fault is, and they have to use a cable ship, go out there and do the maintenance that people do it. Send robotics down there because it's in deep water. That thing is way down in the about, you're talking about thousands of feet under the water. Yeah.
Something important also, first, the digital infrastructure has been invisible, as my colleague said, for a long time. And the second thing is, usually what happens is people think that digital infrastructure is just for engineers, which is not. Digital infrastructure is needs people from multiple backgrounds. We need people in the government that can understand how subsea cable needs to be deployed and the permitting processes needed for that. We need people that understand the marketing, because obviously there is also an important component, the environmental context. So that's why actually this important statement is the foundation of the fellowship we are bringing to Dominica and the Caribbean in general. The fact that the human layer of the digital infrastructure needs to be improved, needs to...
So what are some of the challenges that you face now, as we speak?
When it comes to digital infrastructure, well, in the phase one of the project, as we mentioned, we've been studying the best practices in resilience in 3 islands, Dominica, Puerto Rico, and Turks and Caicos. One of the most important takeovers is the importance of deploying or investing in the human layer of the digital infrastructure. We need better collaboration across the multi-stakeholders. We need more education. We need to create these networks that can build a tailored solution based on the Caribbean, because obviously this is like a tailored suit. What works for the Caribbean doesn't work for other regions. And that's why we try to, this is a process we want to support through the fellowship. And the fellowship is the second part of this report, where we plan to give the opportunity to 40 students across the Caribbean.
How many students?
40.
40, okay.
Across the Caribbean, to be able to go through 3 steps of this fellowship that will give them the opportunity to have a micro credential first on one of the courses of the certificate in global digital infrastructure we mentioned before. Those who will score above B and will show interest, engagement, willingness to participate, and disseminate the knowledge once they finish the course, they will be able to continue and get the full certificate, which includes 2 other modules. One is more related to security, resilience, and how geopolitics shape the conversation about digital infrastructure. And the other one is more about the development, how for example, when an idea starts about deploying a certain digital infrastructure through the different steps, like the financial models, if the subsea cable, for example, would be private or consortium, until the deployment of the infrastructure. And the third part will be an in-person training. Maybe Iago can give more information about this, where we plan to have 10-15 students who went to the first and second phase to be able to transform all the theory into practical skills with tailored solution related to the Caribbean.
Sure. I mean, just to complement what you said, the in-person training will be a continuation of the theoretical aspect of the course. So students will get together to work on a collaborative issue that is relevant for the Caribbean region. It could be designing a new strategy for the region when it comes to digital infrastructure assets such as subsea cable networks, data centers, and so on, or even just get together to imagine how they see the region playing a role, especially now in increased competition, geopolitical fragmentation, and so on. So 10 to 15 students will be selected. They work together in person, and they will present that to.
Is it from Dominica, just from the Caribbean region?
From the Caribbean region as a whole, yeah. But before, we've had students from Dominica also being part of the Youth Advisory Board, so that's why we're back, because we started this project over a year ago, and then the idea is to kind of continue that educational component, right? I mean, when it comes to deploying long-term and large-scale infrastructures, we need people over time, and that sort of engagement and training is very important, and that's why we're back.
What are the prerequisites to qualify for fellowships? You can give us more information.
Sorry, may I ask to repeat the question?
So what are the prerequisites? What makes you qualify?
Fantastic. Thank you very much. This is, I think, the most important question. The 40 students, we want a cohort of 40 students with a balance in gender, island representations, levels of seniorities, and we do not want to focus just on technical backgrounds. We invite students who are maybe finishing their low bachelor degree or finance, journalism, international affairs, as well as computer science to apply. Mm-hmm. No, we don't ask, it's not necessary to have a background in technical issues, because we understand that the digital infrastructure is most of the time something still unknown. And
sounds like more technical stuff. You say not only these people in technical skills can apply.
That's good.
Exactly. We want technical and non-technical background. And what really matters for us is the willingness to learn, but also to be part to this community from this long-term capacity building, in order to not just maybe go through the steps and have the diploma. The importance is to have this strong community that can continue tailoring solutions and to be training the trainers across the Caribbean.
So, as you were saying, this process is not just for technical people. For example, disaster management is a major thing for us. So what happens if, let's say, a hurricane passes, like Maria, and we lost the internet? It does not. It's not only technical people who are involved now. We are told that communication is a lifeline. So anybody out in the fisheries people, the fisher folks, the banana peddler, all of them are going to be impacted because there is no communication, whether through the undersea cable or whether through satellite technology or whatever. Therefore, the program is not particularly for technical people. We need every aspect, as you said, journalism.
So I can apply right now?
You can apply right now. Right? No, the thing about the program, it has issues on regulation. If you have an anti-competitive behavior, you might end up having difficulty in the process.
Okay.
And some persons may not have service because of pricing. So all of that is taken into consideration. The fact that you have disaster management issues to deal with,
mm-hmm.
all that is critical. You have what's known as, if let's say the cable in Canefield, some fellas, the provider, their cable comes in on the Canefield.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if Canefield get damaged from a storm, and your only form of your cable coming in is through there? So you need what is called route diversity. That means you need another area to bring in your cable,
mm-hmm.
because
you can have various sources,
right? Or at least you call it redundancy.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, if it hit Canefield, then we have another path, let's say by up north, that the cable comes in also. So all that people need to understand, the human aspect you talk about. People need to understand how the system operates, so that in the end, if there are any issues, everybody is fully in tune with the process. And that's what the fellowship is all about, to help people understand. So it's not just for technical people. Everybody who want to know about this thing should know
mm-hmm.
about it.
So where do you apply?
Great. We have an application process that, and the deadline is May 1st. We already have more than 200 students or applicants, and we really encourage all of the students to apply. We have a QR code and also a link. Maybe we can share it with you
mm-hmm.
in order to give the opportunity to those who are interested in applying. And the course will start in May 25th, the first phase, the first part, 24th, sorry. So the participants, those who will be selected, will receive information from us a couple of weeks before.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the course actually is in where? Where will it take place?
Great. Thank you very much for the question. It's really important.
It's online?
Yes,
Okay.
it's online and it's in English. And the cohort of students or applicants, the fellows, will have support from us. They will have a team of people that will support them navigating through the process that will last 12 weeks. 6 weeks is the first part of the Digital Infrastructure 101 course for the micro-credential. Another 6 weeks for the other 2 courses in case they are selected to get a full certificate.
So you have to complete the first course and then move on.
Exactly. Those who will score above B and will show interest, engagement, will be invited to the full certificate, which is the second step, we can say.
How difficult would you say it is?
Sorry?
How difficult do you say? Would you say? From a scale from 1 to 10, how difficult it is?
The course?
The course, yeah.
Well, thank you very much for the question again, because before being the program manager, I took the course. So I can sort of having both.
You can
visions.
gauge it, yes, okay.
Yeah, it's good enough for non-technical people to understand, since it's built under a holistic approach, but also who have a technical background that decide to take it will not get bored. Because it's a mix, we can say, of things that can give access from a holistic approach to the social, geopolitical, economical aspects, without forgetting the history a little bit of the digital infrastructure, as well as technical aspect, but in a digestible way.
Okay. Any other comments you want to get?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say for those interested, you can also Google GDI Resident Fellowship, and then that will show up on the University of West Indies website, the link to applications. And then we are very excited to receiving as many applications from Dominica as we can. Dominica is very interesting when it comes to digital infrastructures, given the very geography of the island, the historical patterns, the commercial landscape, and how that connects to the entire Caribbean region. So, I think there's a lot that could be offered, and then we want to hear those voices from the region to really put forward their developments for it.
Bennett, how difficult would you say the telecommunication industry is in Dominica this time, and what are some of the challenges that we face?
Our biggest problem we have in the country now is the whole idea of ensuring that we have a redundant network, in the sense that we are in a hurricane zone. Every year we are challenged with hurricanes. And if we lose communication, it's a major issue. We saw what happened after Hurricane Maria. So we have to ensure that we have some kind of redundant network in place. Both Digicel and Flow need to have sufficient infrastructure and backup for if we lose. And one of the things I exposed at the time is that you have persons who are on either network. That's fine. What happens if Flow's network is down? How do they get service? Vice versa. If Digicel is down. Should there be some kind of arrangement in place, temporary arrangement, which I called it at the time, for what you call emergency telecommunications? Because you know how emergency in the country and we need to use this network.
Right.
But only one service provider is out. So should the regulator and government put something in place that says,
Put to share?
That's correct. We now have one network and both players are on it now for a period of time. We put a pricing, work with the regulator on a pricing mechanism. Because what we found out after Hurricane Maria is that they made a lot of money on data. But that's the time that people need data. And therefore, there should be some kind of regulatory aspect that says, okay, we are not here to gouge you out because of an emergency. But you need a network. You need to call your mother who's at Lowdown or your one down at Soufriere. I need to use it. So one of the greatest challenges is to ensure that we have that capacity, as well as route diversity, so that if anything happens, we don't lose both network coming in at the same point. For example, down in Donkey Beach, both of them are coming at the same point. What happens if you get a blast down there? So these are important things we need to ensure that. And also what we call the last mile. That means the last piece on the infrastructure going to the customer. If you do not have, you might have the cable, you might have the fiber coming up right up to a pole, but it's not reaching your home. If the price is not sufficiently done, you simply watch it there and you cannot get service. So we have the Universal Service Fund, yes. We do have the NTRC working with government on the issue of what you call the underserved areas of the country. So these are critical things that I think the NTRC is doing a good work on that project. The government is working with them on that area. So these are some of the things that we are seeking to ensure that those challenges, especially June is coming up. Every year we have the hurricane season, and that is very critical.
Very, very critical. Anything you want to add?
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much. Actually, we've been mentioning several times subsea cables, digital infrastructure, and now we have a question for you. Have you ever seen a subsea cable before?
No, I haven't. Maybe on the computer or something. Yeah.
So today we have a special guest, which is our friend.
Really? Let me see. So I can show. Yes.
This is. We will show you.
They'll see it on Facebook. Really?
Ta-da!
Let me see. Wow.
Please go ahead, and we will be very happy to explain you a little bit because you can see different layers.
Wow. Are you seeing this?
Yeah. You notice?
If
you look at it closely, you have different layers. What you see here, so what you see on the cable, this is just the last mile stuff. It has different shifts.
Bring the microphone a little closer to you.
Oh, sorry.
You have different shift system here for protection and that kind of stuff. Now, think of this as a bigger model out in the sea.
Bigger cable.
Yes.
Okay.
And that has to take the rigors of the ocean. So you need all of this process.
How durable is that?
Well, that can go for years.
Sorry.
How long can that?
Up to 25 years or more.
The theoretical year end of life.
Yeah, and 25 years. No, the thing about it, they have now improved on the cable technology. So, and this thing that's laid in, talking about thousands of feet of water out there. So you have to send mechanical equipment to do testing on it and check it out and so forth. But that little piece in the end is the fiber.
I see that right.
That's the fiber.
Wow.
Right? And that's where all the capacity is.
All of it?
All of it is in that little thing. But these are just protective shifts to protect it and other technologies to help it recreate the signal and that kind of stuff. But in the end, this little tip is the fiber.
So the cloud is actually under the ocean, not above our heads.
Yes. Actually, this is a little piece of a subsea cable called GlobeNet, which connects Brazil to the US, Florida. And as Bennett says, what carries the data is like that little fibers who are on top.
Wow.
The other ones are copper for the electricity because since this is a repeater cable, every 50, 80 kilometers they have the repeater. In order to bring the signals, so they need copper for the electricity. The other ones, the white one, I forgot the name in English, I'm so sorry, but this is a material for protection and maintain the flexibility of the cable. The other ones are nylon, the black one, and the other is steel, because, for example, in the deep sea, you can see just the cable with until the white layer. But as soon as you reach the shore and you have human activity and other things that could sort of impact the cable and ruin it, you need more protection. This is a double armored, I think, but you can have up to triple armored with another protection. But what carries the internet is that thing on top. And nowadays in the world we have...
You said the internet, yes?
Yes.
Wow.
That carries probably the YouTube streaming, the WhatsApp chat, the Instagram, for those who like playing video games.
At the speed of light.
Exactly. Exactly. And you have 600 approximately cables deployed across the world who are active. And there are other projects, including close to the Caribbean, the Americas, especially because the AI demand also affected the demand when it comes to international connectivity.
A lot of miles of cable.
No, if you look at this on the internet, that's the cable under the sea.
Wow.
That yes. So this is a little picture of it.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's what carries all the internet. Those things. Now, if you have trailer ships running around with big hooks and so forth, and they can hook it up and so forth. So that's why there are laws governing the use of this.
So how do you know where this is going to pass? How do you give alarm or alert that these cables are down below?
Yeah, well, they have all the players involved, the major cable players. When they're doing their sea deployment, they make the entire world know that they are undersea cable there. But they have certain markers along the place that make them know that they have their what is called a network operation center that will send alarms out and make people know that, look, I have cable. If anything happens, they keep monitoring the cable, and any alarm that comes up on the cable or any issue, if there's a cut in the cable, they will know. They know exactly where it is, but then they have to deploy the ship to go and grab it. So we try not to allow, I mean, this thing is not onshore. It only comes onshore for you to come to your local thing, but otherwise this thing way out in the deep
oceans.
Deep oceans, that thing.
And again, just this conversation shows the different disciplines that are involved in making this work, right? We need geologists, oceanographers, people work on different geographic information systems, data sets.
Right.
We need engineers, we need business people, we need lawyers, and all of those require different training and different different practices for understanding how that works.
Yeah, and you need a journalist like you, so that when you come and you say, okay, guy, there's a cut in the cable, you have to know how to explain that to the public and so forth. A little knowledge of what is happening. So when the people don't get jittery, you can explain it to them and so forth. There are legal issues and so forth. There are regulatory issues. So a number of specialists are involved.
So a lot more education has to take place.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And that's what the training is about.
And also just to emphasize why we're calling strategic network resilience, right? I mean, as a result of our first phase, because as you mentioned, there are different strategies for securing the cable, the route, and the different elements of the digital infrastructure stack. It's not a tailored suit, as you said. There are different ways and strategies that each island, in each context, in each regional relationship and sort of human capacity will require. So that requires training people, having the resources and thinking long term.
But there may be some security issues attached to this cable, some of these cables.
Yes, I mean, you would have seen some time ago that even in the Ukraine war going on now, some time ago you saw somebody said, media, that somebody sabotaged a cable, and as a result, the entire internet was down. Well, somebody can do that because the cable is out there. You understand? You have ships going around with the heavy and damaging cable. So it is important for people to be aware of all of these things. So when you hear an outage, you might think, oh, cable has an outage or DHL an outage. No, it's not necessarily DHL. That thing may have happened way up in Florida or somewhere in the Caribbean waters. But then as soon as that happens, there's an
alert.
Yeah, right. There's a network operation center, NOC, that monitors all of these things. They see all the cable and they send out the system out and tell, okay, it's been done, but then you have to deploy the cable ship and the unmanned vehicles out to get it done.
Very interesting. Let's take a break and we'll come back, Dominica. More education here. Q95, this is a talk on the block. We're going to come back, Dominica, right after this.
Manufacture high-quality roofing sheets, 24 gauge in different colors, also to customer specifications. That's right, whatever length you want. Aluminum seamless guttering. We also sell PRC mesh, steel rods in all sizes, breach caps, fencing wire, and fencing poles. Free estimates for guttering, galvanized sheets, and fencing wire. Quality products at the lowest prices island-wide. Royce & Company Limited, located at Caneville Industrial Site, Shed 1A, just before the Old Mill Cultural Center. Call us today at 617-2468 or 615-0178. Royce & Company Limited, built for living, built for life.
Hardware and home improvement, building supplies for you, kitchen appliances, even home decor too. Lumber, lawn, all your garden supplies, plumbing, welding, electrical supplies.
Visit Do It Center at the former J. Nassif Hardware location on Goodwill Road. Call us at 255-6890.
Immunization is a safe and effective way to prevent certain diseases. Every child should be immunized against the following: tuberculosis, hepatitis B, diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, Haemophilus influenza type B, polio, mumps, measles, rubella, human papilloma virus. Before immunization, please inform the nurse if your child is or has been ill, is or has been receiving any medication, has a fever or seizures, has any allergies, especially to vaccine products. Is your child vaccination status up to date? Please contact a health center near you. Protect your community.
This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Social Services in collaboration with UNICEF, PAHO, and
Fresh Market, Best Price, and Cash and Carry are giving you the chance to win the ultimate tascation. Simply spend $100 or more in store for a chance to win a luxurious weekend getaway at the Secret Berry store. Plus 2 VIP tickets to Chat and Crayon. And spending money. But the excitement does not end here. Enjoy weekly prizes, fun in-store activities, and surprises, all promotion alone. The more you shop, the more chances you get to win. Shop at Fresh Market, Best Price, or Cash and Carry today and enter for your chance to win the ultimate tascation. Promotion runs from now until April 24th. Terms and conditions apply.
I see Golo in shopping for farming supplies. So I ask him, what are you doing inside Bloombox? You have a farm? He tell me, that's how it has sort. I've been married 37 years. Look at my money farm. He say, no, not woman, like land for farming crops. And then you understand, Bloombox is the most affordable on island. Knapsacks starting at only $57.71. Elsewhere, it's $300 plus. Cutlass seeds, seeding trays, nursery pots, sales of potting mix, all at way better prices than anywhere else. Fertilizers, 3-in-1 multi-tool, and so much more. Located on Federation Drive, Goodwill. Second property on the right after the Valley Link Road and on the corner of Drury Lane and Hanover Street in Rosal. Bloombox. Let's bloom together.
We start saying it's the ball, the arrow. I might say it's the arrow head, the space we facing. And this stuff is the bow and Jala pulling that.
They don't know while they partying, I'm studying. They never see the good you do. They just know to back talk you. They don't see the country. They stabilizing.
His verbs explode in cunningly crafted and constructed calypso. He goes on the attack with bring back the money and do something to help my brothers for me. Piercing political melody couched in vibrant, scorching lyrics. The synchrony of rhythm and of rhyme in skillfully dissected time and movements and motions, alluring alliteration, rolling the dice in words orgasmic and precise, stirring, writhing with a cosmic resonance of patriotic passion, touching the soul of the nation in pulsating cadences, crushing corrupting bars, the language of the stars, emblazoned on the human scape destiny's timeless clock. Oh, if the stars could talk.
Party Run Tribute Part 3 on Q95 FM this Friday, April 25th, 10:45 a.m. Special guest include Andy Aaron, Jose Luis, Val Young will copy, Honorable Ray Blackmore, Father Branca John, Johnson Boston, singing Sandy and more. Pat Aaron Tribute Part 3 this Friday on Q95 FM. A Creole had with Q95 FM, DNO, Multi Solutions Inc., and Pavel Zero presentation. Pa Manchester.
All right, Dominique, we here. Our focus more telecommunications. And if you will, the big cables running through carrying the technology that we all need on a day-to-day basis. They're offering some scholarships. And we're gonna go over this. But let's take a phone call or two as we move along. Hello, talk to me, yes?
Yeah, good afternoon, Matt. Ask them about how low these cables will be. It will not interfere with the submarine and the big fishes.
This question is a very...
No, this thing is way down in the bottom of the ocean. We're talking about thousands of feet underwater.
Whether the fish is going to affect it, that's what he's basically asking.
No, it won't affect them.
But the act of fishing might affect if it's near the shore.
Correct.
And so much so that most of the cuts are due to trawling or due to fishing activity near the shore. That is precisely why the layering of the cable has to be more robust when it comes close to shore with different layers and so on.
Right. So different layers we saw on that thing. It's particularly for that kind of activity, for fishermen especially. But as soon as it leaves the shoreline and goes back into the ocean, it goes up way back into the deep sea. But as it approaches shore, then you have fishermen with their trawlers and so forth. And that's why they have so much protective coverage.
Mm-hmm. But there have been other cases of natural, for example, volcanic activity can deeply affect, like
So
like in the Pacific, for instance.
Right, so you can have the cable be, although you anchor it, if this is heavy water and heavy seas, it can...
It's locked down?
Yeah, you can. It's buried under on the sea sound. Buried on the sea floor itself.
Interesting.
Something really important also, during the deployment of a subsea cable, several environmental studies are made. For example, to choose the route of the cable, there are something called desktop study research, which is using current maps. But then in a second phase, they do marine survey, which means that there are some specific vessels that do this research closer to the shore to understand, because maybe you have a certain route from A to B, but you have to change it because there are corals or some types of sand that doesn't make the deployment available. And also something else, basically this. And when it comes also to talk to fishermen, there is a social component really important to spread awareness. Because, for example, when the subsea cables arrive to the shore, maybe the fisherman activity could be impacted one day. Maybe they cannot be close to the area.
What are the education for the fishermen?
Yeah, so that's what she's saying.
Yeah.
And what she said is that because the cable is coming on shore, so let's say it comes in Donkey Beach. Right. And people are accustomed to selling their nets in Donkey Beach. The day or they're going to do that, they say, hey guys, we have that cable coming in. You have to stop doing your fishing in that area because we are going to bring in the cable.
Oh, so on the day that the cable is brought in.
You give some prior notice that's going to happen, but when you're going to have that kind of activity coming in, so you want to ensure that you put your buoyants around the area. People know that you're doing that because it takes a lot of time to do that.
Okay.
So as you approach shore, you're going to have the impact on fishermen, young guy trying to catch your fish around. You say, hey guy, this area cannot exclude for the next week. So that kind of stuff.
And it goes back to that question of why these pillars have been invisible, right? I mean, because there's an element of security and commercial investment involved.
So how often does you undertake that exercise in terms of bringing it close to the shore?
No, and this is not happening every day. No. This is, you come in and say, okay, the guy, as you said earlier, you do a marine survey. Should I, doing the marine survey, it's like doing an EIA, an environmental impact assessment. Should I bring it on that point of the seashore or this point? If I bring it there, it's too shallow. If I bring it there, so they do the survey and they say, okay, this is the best point to do it, to bring it in. When they do that, they try to bring it as minimal shallow water as possible. But you have to get shallow water because you have to go on shore. But then it is done in such a way that the majority of the cable is out in heavy open waters.
Somebody's asking a question there on Facebook. How much is it? How much is the cost to the customer? I don't think there's any particular cost to the customer.
Well, there are costs because all of that
are there.
But in the end result,
indirectly.
In other words, the service providers, they will have their consortium and so forth. They do their mathematics, they do their capital budget and so forth. And in the end, it is up to the service provider, the regulator, and government to come to an understanding.
In terms of price.
The price and pricing. The regulator is critical because remember, you put capital expenditure in there. You know, you have a lot of capital, but then you cannot have it too expensive and the customer cannot get it. So that's where the key, when the regulator comes in. They do the analysis, what they call different pricing analysis and so forth. You have to give them the necessary information and they do so. So it's not just charge you.
Okay. You were going to make a comment to that?
Oh, no, okay. I think I've covered everything.
Yeah. So there's a pricing. That's what the regulator is critical.
Let's take a phone call. Are you there, caller? Yes?
Hey, Mr. Pelton, blessings. Just a quick question. Matt, I tune in a little late, but every time I hear about the former, why is it cable and heartless or cable and wireless? So that's what it used to be.
Cable and wireless, yes.
Okay, and now it is flow.
Uh-huh.
You know, money has to do with flowing out, the current, you know, electricity, everything. Gentlemen and lady, blessings to you all. Who are the true owners of flow? The Jewish people, the British people, the Russians, the Americans. Who are the owners of flow? Thank you.
Mr. Bennett, I think that's a question for you.
Well, we are not here to discuss ownership of telecom companies.
No.
But Flow used to be cable and wireless.
Right.
They changed their brand name and so forth.
So who are the owners? I think that's the question is going to. It's getting to. Who are the owners of these multi-million-dollar companies?
They have consortiums.
Okay.
That come together, and they have their thing. So
like shares, yeah.
Major companies have.
Without digging into details of governance issues and the commercial aspect, I must say that is why we need to also learn about the history of how the Caribbean was connected and different
for example,
endeavors that brought connectivity.
We have a cable called the Eastern Caribbean Fiber System that runs through the OECS up to all the islands. And it was a conglomerate of companies that the Flow had a part in it, maybe AT&T had a part and so forth. So sometimes it's not just one. No, interestingly,
it's a collaboration.
That's correct, right? Sometimes, in more recent times, I noticed people like Google and the big players have their money.
Okay.
They actually own an entire piece of cable because they have the money to do so and they have the ship and so forth. But in the early days, it still happens now, but they have a conglomerate where you have Cable and Wireless have certain amount of shares. AT&T may have some shares, that person may have some shares, and they set across.
Okay, let's get back to the original discussion there in terms of the scholarship being offered there, the fellowships. So let's, kind of wind down on that point. What is being offered? Why is it being offered? Can you speak to that again before we go?
Definitely. So, as mentioned, the Fellowship in Global Digital Infrastructure is a 3-step fellowship that at first will give the chance to 40 students across the Caribbean to go through the...
Do you decide how many on each island or just...
it's 40 in particular. I mean, in
40 in the group, but in terms
trying
of...
to maintain balance across the islands, but also in terms of gender.
How many islands are we talking about here?
That's a great question because before coming to Dominica, we've been in Curacao, we've been in Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, we've been Trinidad and Tobago, and Barbados. And also we had on-site online presentations with, for example, the ISOC Internet Society chapters across the Caribbean in order to spread awareness as much as we can, considering that sometimes in terms of time and budget is not very easy maybe to travel across the whole Caribbean.
But the selection of the people there for this fellowship, anything in particular you're looking for?
Sure. I mean, it's a great question. We are looking for people who are curious to understand how the systems work, people who are committed to the region, and people who are willing to build that capacity, right? I mean, looking at the delta, the capacity of the student to grow and to learn and to absorb from, and then take that the trainer's model that we hope to follow. Those that we select are people that might, decades from now, be leaders in the telecom space. They might be in government, they might be in the commercial side, they might be in education. So we want to make sure that we cultivate and celebrate this community long term. And that's why choosing and having a regional and holistic approach to selection is very important.
Is there an age range?
No, sorry?
Age range.
Not. Maybe we are more focused on having students almost finishing their bachelor's degree and so students are young professionals in general, but we encourage every person interested in resilience, strategic network resilience, and digital infrastructure to
Okay,
apply.
there's some people might not be able or don't have the degrees, but have the know-how.
Totally.
Exactly, and that's
That-
precisely what we are also very keen on.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, different realities will require different solutions, right? And degrees in itself, I mean, are not guaranteed that you will get a job or they will be able to make a difference. So
There's some people with degrees with no common sense.
I mean, and also I think what brings people together through the infrastructural world is that those are things that we see, and despite being invisible, we touch, we can understand, and then there is that element of bringing people together for the greater good. Because at the end of the day, as Bennett mentioned, without communication, I mean, we won't have public services, the foundation of the internet, and the pillars of the internet. They would require that knowledge and awareness.
All right, let's have a final comment. So we'll start with you and we'll go around the table and wrap it up because we don't have so much time.
Sure. I mean, I just want to thank you all for having us again in Dominica. It is a pleasure to be here and to recognize and speak with talent. We've had students, very talented students from the region before, and from Dominica in particular. So we're very happy to be back. And we hope to see more applications coming from.
All right. Well, you're welcome. Come back soon, huh?
Thank you very much for listening to us. We invite you to apply and be part of the next generation of leaders.
All right. Where do we apply again? One more time.
Sorry?
Where do we apply?
Yeah, if you Google GDI Resilient Fellowship on Google, you will find that. And then
The application process.
Yeah, it's on the University of West Indies page as well.
Okay. Bennett, your final words are yours.
I'm happy that they are here again because Dominica, interestingly, I was amazed to find out that Dominica was chosen initially to be part of that project.
As a result of you, right?
No. But I was when
You're a big influencer.
No, so I said, well, if Dominica was chosen, now that the opportunity is here, we are hoping as many Dominicans as possible take over the opportunity to be, because you are now going to be trained in that area, and we have expertise in that area to do that. So I am hoping as many persons as possible. We are supposed to be going when you finish during the course of this week. We'll be over at UWI.
Okay.
Back on the road there. We're going to the State College, and we're going to meet with the service providers, and if there are persons inside that were interested, all of that. So we are looking at all of those facilities. And if there are high school students who want to come to it, they can come to the State College or they can come to the meeting that we are going to have.
Well, thank you. It was a very informative discussion, and I'm hoping that students and all those interested may apply for the fellowship. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
The arrowhead, the space repair scene, and himself is the bow and Jala two in that.
They don't know while they partying, I studying. They never see the good you do. They just know to back up you. They don't see the country. They stay be live in.
His verbs explode in cunningly crafted and constructed calypso. He goes on the attack with bring back the money and do something to help my brothers for me. Piercing political melody couched in vibrant, scorching lyrics. The synchrony of rhythm and of rhyme in skillfully dissected time and movements and motions, alluring alliteration, rolling the dice in words orgasmic and precise, stirring, writhing with a cosmic resonance of patriotic passion, touching the soul of the nation in pulsating cadences, crushing corrupting bars, the language of the stars, emblazoned on the human-scape destiny's timeless clock. Oh, if the stars could talk.
Party Run Tribute Part 3 on Q95 FM this Friday, April 25th, 10:45 a.m. Special guests include Annie Aaron, Jose Luis, Val Jungle Copy, Honorable Ray Blackmore, Father Branca John, Johnson Boston, singing Sandy and more. Pat Aaron Tribute Part 3 this Friday on Q95 FM. A Creole Happy Q95 FM TNO Multi Solutions Inc. and Pop and Syrup presentation. Manchester.
Tune in tomorrow for the hot sit and, of course, the talking block. The leader of the United Workers' Party will be my guest tomorrow from the 1 o'clock hour.
Such a rush, my baby, slow down, come find your love. I'm hoping you see me, come serve it up. Love it when you stir it up, that body belong on TV. Oh, this feeling I can't hide, you're feeling up my mind, and I just don't know why.